The Allegory of the Inspected Rooms. There's a family I want to tell you about. 2 parents. Good jobs. Strong salaries. They own their home. They are respected. They talk often about values, discipline, personal responsibility, earning your rewards. They are also ambitious. One parent is working on a master's degree. The other is deep into a PhD program. Their lives are structured around advancement. Tuition payments, conferences, credentials, resumes. They speak proudly about sacrifice, almost always meaning their own. Their bedroom reflects those priorities. It's quiet, dry, comfortable, recently remodeled so they can study late into the night without distraction. They have 6 children. The children live in 3 bedrooms. Or rather, they sleep in them. None of the bedrooms are in good condition. All 3 leak when it rains. Mold creeps along the walls. Old insulation flakes into the carpet. Trash cans sit in the corners to catch water dripping from the ceiling. At night, the children cough. Their sleep is shallow and broken. Mornings begin already exhausted. The parents know. They've seen the stains. They've stepped around the buckets. They've heard the coughing. But when the children struggle in school, the parents decide the problem isn't the rooms. It's the kids. If they cared more about school, we'd care more about their rooms. If they're not going to take education seriously, why should we reward that? They say this openly. Repeatedly. They frame neglect as motivation. Deprivation as discipline. Eventually, the parents choose one bedroom to renovate. Not because it's the worst. Not because it's dangerous. They chose the smallest room, practically a walk-in closet, with a single cracked window and only minor leaks. It was cheap to fix. Convenient. And it would finally give them something they wanted. Space to store their shoes, bags, and clothes neatly. A quiet retreat for study or late nights, a tidy little victory they could admire. The children would benefit in theory, but the real reward was theirs. The renovations are significant. Mold is removed. Leaks are sealed. Fresh paint. Clean air. The change is immediate. The children sleep through the night. They stop coughing. They wake up rested. Their grades improve. Not because of fear. Not because of discipline. Because their brains finally get oxygen and rest. Because they aren't living in a state of constant physiological stress. Because they no longer feel like they're being punished for existing. The parents are thrilled. They don't question their assumptions. They celebrate them. See, they say. This is what happens when kids apply themselves. They never acknowledge that the improvement followed the repair. That the effort came after the care. That year, the parents plan a vacation to Disney World. They take only those 2 children. The explanation is neat. Merit-based. Clean. We're rewarding hard work. The other 4 children stay behind. Their rooms still leak. The mold is still there. The trash cans still collect rainwater. They still cough at night. They still struggle in school. They are still told they haven't earned better conditions. They learn something quietly and permanently. That safety is conditional and dignity must be proven. Eventually, outsiders come into the house. Inspectors. Social workers. People trained to notice. They're horrified, but no one orders repairs. No one mandates remediation. Instead, the children are removed, placed into foster care. The parents are not charged with neglect. They are not required to fix the rooms. In fact, their lives become easier. Fewer expenses. More time for their degrees. More money for themselves. More space for their shoes and their study sessions. They visit the children occasionally. They speak lovingly. They talk about how hard this has all been. For them. And now pause. Because this is not a story about a family. This is a story about the city of Cleveland. The parents are the institutions responsible for public education. The house is the school system. The children are tens of thousands of students. At the beginning, none of the schools are safe. Some buildings leak. Some are filled with mold. Some poison learning before it even begins. Then, eventually, one school gets repaired. One building receives investment. And suddenly, one group of students starts to perform better. The system points to this as proof of merit. Trips are awarded. Opportunities are showcased. Disney World. Meanwhile, the other schools remain toxic. Their students continue to struggle. And that struggle becomes the justification for continued neglect. Ohio law requires regular, compliant health and safety inspections in schools. These inspections are not optional. They are legal obligations. And yet, many Cleveland schools are not inspected according to state law. Some haven't been inspected properly for years. Newton D. Baker School of Arts went nearly a decade without inspections that met legal requirements. There are schools that went years without soap in the bathrooms. Ceilings that leak year after year. Air that quietly erodes cognition. And then we measure performance. We reward achievement. We punish failure. We pretend the conditions had nothing to do with the outcome. This system does not discover talent. It manufactures disparity, and then moralizes it. And when schools become too toxic to ignore, they're closed. Children are displaced, and responsibility dissolves. The final truth this allegory exposes is, if this were a private home, it would be condemned. If this were a landlord, they'd be fined. If this were a parent, they'd be charged. But because it's public, because it's bureaucratic, because the harm is distributed across committees and memos, no one is named. Neglect dissolves into policy. Cruelty is translated into metrics. Damage is rebranded as rigor. Because responsibility is diffused until it belongs to no one. The law is treated as optional. What would be a crime in a home becomes a management decision in a district. What would trigger removal becomes school choice. What would demand remediation becomes transition. The system does not ask whether children were harmed. It asks whether the harm was evenly applied. Those who survive are labeled resilient. Those who don't are labeled data. This is not accountability. It is laundering harm until it looks like governance. And because it's public, because it's bureaucratic, because the neglect is institutional, no one ever has to say, "We chose not to fix it." The system injures first, measures later, and congratulates itself for the survivors.